Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunday School. I am Adrena Alexander, and today we're going to look at Injustice Will Be Punished. Injustice will be punished. I want you to say that because so many times we see things that are done and we say, well, what is going to happen? Lord, when are you going to move? What are you going to do? Injustice will be punished. And throughout this lesson, throughout the series, everything we're looking at has been or have been looking at has been pertaining to justice as well as injustice. But know this, injustice will be punished. And today we're coming out of Esther, the book of Esther, chapter 7. Esther, chapter 7, the entire chapter, verses 1 through 10. And as we look at Esther, chapter 7, verses 1 through 10, I always like to say and ask people to think about, how does this apply to me in 2020? What does this mean for me in 2020? How can I take Esther's story and make it part of my story? So that's what we are going to look at. We're looking at Esther chapter 7. Let's bow. Father, thank you for the word on today. Injustice will be punished. You said, vengeance is yours and you will repay. Remind us that you fight our battles for us, but you also use us as vessels to speak and act on the behalf of others when injustice is involved. I pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, for you are my strength and my redeemer. All right, Esther chapter 7. I just love it. One of my favorite books of the Bible. It has so many nuggets in the book of Esther, and it shows us how God will use women, how God used women, and how God will use a woman in whatever way he wants to. But I want to catch us up. I want to give us a little history of what's going on before we get to chapter 7. Who was Esther? Esther was an orphan. She was an orphan in the care of her cousin Mordecai. And she just was an ordinary girl, just an average girl. Nobody knew her, knew anything about her. She was young, very beautiful, according to how the scripture describes her. But just an ordinary, I want you to pick that up. Just an ordinary person, just living her life. And what happened was the king that was reigning at that time, he loved to have these lavish celebrations and these banquets and all these parties and gatherings. And he had this particular gathering. It was nothing but men, and they had been drinking, had a little too much to drink. And the king called for his queen Vashti so she could come and parade herself in front of the men. Vashti refused. She said, no, well, you don't defy the king. So, of course, he's upset. And his counselors tells him, you need to get rid of Vashti and get you a new queen. Get you a queen who's going to be obedient. Get you a queen who's going to follow your rules. Get you a queen who's going to do whatever it is you say to do. He takes their advice. So now he has put out a summons, and he's summoning all of the girls, young girls, to come who are interested in becoming the new queen. Well, Mordecai looks at his beautiful cousin and he says to her, why don't you do that? And so, Esther goes on with the process with the rest of the women, and they go on and they go through this whole process. And all of this time, she is favored by him and she becomes the queen. So when we get to 7, something is happening. But let me still give us a little update. When we look at Esther chapter 3, it's talking about how the king made it a mandate for people to bow and pay homage to Haman. Haman was his right-hand man. Haman was the one carrying out the orders of the king. He's the one that assisted the king. So he, the king, made a mandate for people to pay homage and bow before him, Haman. Well, according to chapter 3, Mordecai did not want to do this. He wasn't going to do this. And so what Haman does in chapter 3, Haman said to the king, there's a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces. So Haman tells the king there's a group of people. Now this group he's speaking of, they are Jews. There's a group of people that are scattered all among us. They're just everywhere among us. So then when we get to verses 12 and 13 in chapter 3 of Esther, we see where Haman convinces the king to sign a decree to destroy the Jews. Look what it says in verse 13 there of Esther 3. And the letters were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day on the 13th of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. So here is Haman. He doesn't like the Jews. Now, mind you, Esther is a Jew, but when she goes through her process, she doesn't tell anybody that she's of Jewish descent. She doesn't tell anybody. So in chapter 3, Haman convinces the king. The king puts his signet ring on it. Yes, we're going to sign this decree to do what? Annihilate all of the Jews. Let's fast forward as we work our way up. Then when we get to Esther chapter 4, Esther asked for them to fast because Mordecai has now sent word to Esther for her to be the one to go before the king on behalf of her people. Now, wait, let me pause. I want to make sure we're getting this. Esther's a Jew. No one knows she's a Jew. The decree has been signed for them to be destroyed. Mordecai is challenging Esther to be the one to go before the king and speak up on their behalf. And he challenges her and he says to her, how do you know that you were not appointed for such a time as this? Beloved, I want you to catch that. As we go through life and we're given different appointments and different assignments, we want to make sure that we use our voices, not just for us, but for other people. We want to make sure that we use our voices so that if we see any injustices taking place, that we speak up against it. So Mordecai is challenging Esther by sending the message through the eunuch to her. How do you know you were not assigned for such a time as this? So when we get to chapter 4, Esther, after receiving Mordecai's letter, she starts to think about it. So she sends back word to Mordecai, go into a fast, and me and my servants will fast also. Because she's trying to get a decision. She's trying to get some boldness about her and a decision to go before the king. You have to understand, you couldn't just go before the king without permission. You had to have permission to go before the king. And so she wants the king to grant her permission to go before him. So she declares and she asks them to fast for her, and they do that. So let's fast forward and keep going. Then when we get to Esther chapter 5, so Haman went out that day joyful with a glad heart. Now remember, the king has put in this mandate that everybody is to bow and pay homage to who? Haman. Watch this in chapter 5. Haman went out that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and that he did not stand or tremble before him, he was filled with indignation against Mordecai. So Haman goes out and there's Mordecai. Mordecai sees Haman and he remains seated. He's not getting up. He is not bowing to no man. He's not paying him homage. He's not trembling. He's not afraid. He's not any of that. Well, Haman's ego is bruised because everybody bows before him. So what do you mean, Mordecai, you're not bowing? So he is furious. Haman is furious. So look, as we keep going here, and we get to verse 13, we're still in Esther 5. He says, yet all this avails me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. I'm upset. He said, every time I see him, he is sitting. He's not paying me any respect. He doesn't bow. He gives me no homage. I mean, he is outraged at this. 14, his wife, Haman's wife. Her name is Zeresh. She recommends that he builds a gallows to hang Mordecai on. Look what it says. Let a gallows be made 50 cubits high, and in the morning suggest to the king that Mordecai be hanged on it. So she tells her husband, he's not paying you respect. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Create a gallows. That was where they hung people. It was, wood beam across and two pieces, and they hung them there. She said to him, you create that for Mordecai, but she says, go to the king and tell the king to do it in the morning. Well, Haman was excited about that. So he creates the gallows, or have them designed and built so that he can destroy Mordecai. So now we get to chapter 7. So here we have Esther, who was not known at all, has found favor with the king. Her background is that of an orphan, reared by her cousin Mordecai. Now she's in the palace. She's in a place of position. She's in a place of appointment. She's in a place where she can make decisions. I want you to catch that. As God moves us through places where we are appointed, where we are assigned, where we are given power and authority and voice, we've got to use it when we see there is some injustice. Although Mordecai had to convince her, thank you for the Mordecais in our lives. Thank you for the Mordecais who say to us, you know what? You're in a key position to get something done. There's an injustice going on with people. People are being ill-treated. People are being marginalized. Policies are being put in place that are negatively impacting our people. So what are you going to do about it? Oh, I just said something right there. I want you to catch that. So what are you going to do about it? You are in a position now where you can use your voice and you can make a difference and make things happen. So here she is. Here is Esther in chapter 7. She has a second banquet. There was another banquet that we see in Esther chapter 6, where the king asked her, what do you want, my queen? What do you want, my queen? Whatever you want, I will grant it to you. So when we get to 7, let's go. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther. She invited them to a banquet. Now this is so powerful. She invites the king, the man of authority, who can make the decisions, who can make things happen. And she invites Haman, who is the enemy. Haman is the one who tricked the king and convinced the king to put this decree in place to kill the Jews. Haman is the enemy. He's the one that is upset because Mordecai will not bow. Haman is the one who said all these Jews are mixing in. They're scattered. They're mixing in with our people. This is Haman. So she invites the man of power and she invites the enemy all at the banquet table. Because why? Girlfriend is getting ready to make a move. She's getting ready to make a move on behalf of who? Her people. Watch this. So here they are. Now we get to verse 2 there of Esther 7. And on the second day at the banquet of wine, the king again said to Esther, what is your petition? He's asking her. The king is asking Esther, the queen, who is his wife, what is your petition, honey? What do you want from me? What is it? Because she understand he had asked her before, but obviously Esther did not feel like the time was right. Come on, beloved. There is a time and a place and a season for everything. And she obviously did not feel like the time before when he asked her, what is it? She didn't feel like that was the right time. Oh, but now she had both parties there. She'd made her mind up. She had been in a fast. Come on, somebody. There's power in fasting. She had been in a fast. Others had been fasting. So now she felt like this was the right time. He said, what is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted. He's telling her, he said, whatever it is you want, I will grant it for you. Look what he says. And what is your request? Up to half the kingdom, it shall be done. He said, name it. Just queen, just tell me whatever it is you want. Now, you can't tell me she did not have favor. Now, understand, I said to you her background. Esther was an orphan. Esther was somebody no one even knew. Esther was in the care of her cousin Mordecai. Esther went through a process to get to where she is to take on this position. And so now she's put in a place where she can make decisions. I do not want us to miss that. I'm all into 2020 right now. I don't want us to miss that. So she's in this key position, in this key role, and she's found favor with the king. And all he's saying is, baby, just name what you want. It is yours. Watch this. Look at 3. Queen Esther answered and said, if I have found favor in your sight. She had already found favor because she was the one selected out of all of the women to become his queen. So she says, if I found favor, O king, and if it pleases the king, here we go. Now remember what I said. No one knew that Esther was a Jew. She's taking a bold move. She's taking a courageous move. And let me tell you something, beloved. We are going to be faced with times where we have to make bold moves and bold decisions. So don't forget that. Don't forget that. When we are put in positions, we have to have the courage and the boldness when we see injustices happening on a group of people. My. We've got to speak up. Now watch this. Look what she says. She's getting ready to lay it out. She says, let my life be given me at my petition, my request, and my people at my request. Oh, wait. Let's stay there for a few seconds. Let me labor there for a second. She does not go before the king just for herself. My. Come on. I want you to digest that right there. She does not go before the king just for herself. We can't be selfish. She goes before the king, she says, for me, for the petition of my life, as well as my people. Don't forget that when we are appointed and we are put in positions and places where we have power and authority, even if we don't have power and authority and we're not put in positions, we can make the position happen. We can go before authorities and say, Lord, give me favor. I'm going to fast. I'm praying for favor so that I can go speak, not just for me, but for my people. So it wasn't just a selfish move. Yes, Esther could have gone in there and said, listen, there's a decree to destroy the Jews. I am a Jew, but I'm asking you to spare my life. She could have done that and not been concerned about her people at all. Because she was the queen. She could have just gone and been very, very selfish, thinking only of herself. But that's not what she did. She took a bold move. Now, also in that time that Mordecai challenged her and she declared the fast, she said, if I perish, I perish. That's a bold step. Meaning I'm willing to go on behalf of me and my people before the king, even if it means I will lose my life. Oh my God. Oh my God. Watch this. Watch this. She says, I'm coming before you for my life and for the life of my people. Look at verse 4. She says, for we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Sound like genocide to you? He says, look, we have been sold, my people and I, and this is why we've been sold. She said, to be destroyed, to be killed. The whole purpose of selling us is for us to be destroyed, me and my people. Look what she says. Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue. In other words, if they had been sold as slaves, they still would have their lives and they still would be moving and functioning and all that. She says, but that's not the case. Look, although the enemy could never compensate for the king's loss. Remember, I read that to you. I read to you that Haman went to the king and said, there's a group of people. And this group of people, and they're coming and they're scattering among people. But his real concern was, or his real issue was, Mordecai, who would not bow. See, it was his pride. Watch this. Look what happens here in verse 5. So the king, he answered and said to Queen Esther, who is he and where is he? So he's now asking this person who wants to kill the Jews, this person who wants to destroy the Jews, this person who wants to annihilate this entire group of people. Who is he? Where is he? Who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing? He said, who is this person? Who would dare come up with such a thing in their heart to do this? Look at this, beloved. My God, my God. Esther was a bold woman. She was a courageous woman. Watch this. Look at verse 6. And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. So look, remember who I said she invited to this banquet of three? The man in authority and position to make things happen and change things, and the enemy. So when the man of authority, the king, when he said, who is he? Where is he? She points right at him and she points him out. Him. That's why he was invited. You know, she didn't go to the king alone. She wanted Haman to be present to hear firsthand what she was petitioning the king for. She said, him. He is the enemy and he is the adversary. Let me tell you, beloved, we go before the Lord and we pray. We know we see the injustice. We see things are wrong. We say, okay, Lord, who do I invite to the table? My. Who should be the guest at the table? And Lord, give me the level of boldness and courage that I need, that when they're at the table, I can go directly to the enemy and speak in his face and say, you. I can point him out and say, him. He's the one. I'm talking about injustice, when injustice is being done. Watch this. Look at this. Oh, this is so delicious. Watch this. Look at this. Look what he says. So King Ahasuerus, I know I butchered that, answered and said to Queen Esther, who is he? Where is he? Who would dare presume to do this? Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. So Haman was terrified before the king and the queen. Oh no, Haman, I thought you were so big and bad. I thought you were so big and bad. That's why you wanted people to bow before you. But now that the script has been flipped and you have been exposed, now you are fearful. Because see, what people will do, people that are wicked and they do those things, see, they work behind the scenes. They trick people. They manipulate to get things working their way. And that's what Haman had done. See, when the king put that decree in place and he sealed it with his signet ring, which made it official, the king did not fully understand what he was doing. He trusted Haman, who was his assistant. Oh, Lord. He trusted him. So now, Haman, you are exposed. And beloved, let me tell you something. It takes exposure sometimes to get things done. When we see that people are maneuvering and operating behind the scenes. Oh, Lord, have mercy. I'm preaching to myself. When we see that people are operating and maneuvering behind the scenes, we've got to come forward and say, no. That is not right. That is injustice to my people. That's not right. Watch this. Look at verse 7. Then the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. So now the king is angry. So he goes to the palace garden. I guess he's going to gather his thoughts. He's going to cool off a little bit, because understand, here is his queen with her petition. And here is his servant and his assistant whom he has trusted for years, long before Esther came on the scene. And so Haman has done something to his queen and her people. Watch this. So he goes out to the palace garden. But Haman stood before Queen Esther pleading for his life. Are you serious? But a lot of times that's what will happen. When the enemy gets caught, when he's exposed, now all of a sudden, he wants his life spared. He wants to be humble. So he's going before the Queen Esther and he's begging for his life. For he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. When the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, Haman had fallen across the couch where Esther was. So here's Haman. He's all laid, stretched out, begging for his life. He's over there on the couch where the queen is, which is the wife of the king, and the king walks in. The king said, wait a minute. Will he also assault the queen while I am in the house? So he's really indignant. He's really angry now. So he's looking at Haman like he's thinking Haman is doing something to Esther, not really realizing, no, he's begging. He's humble now. He's the one bowing. He had everybody else bowing to him and paying him homage, upset that Mordecai would not. But now he is the one that's bowing and paying homage to Esther, trying to spare his life. But the king thought he was getting ready to assault. Look what he says. As the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now remember I said to you that Haman's wife convinced him to build gallows for Mordecai to kill Mordecai. Because Mordecai, every time he went to the gate, Haman went to the gate, Mordecai was sitting down and he would not bow and pay homage to Haman. Remember that. Haman, built the gallows to kill Mordecai. Watch this. They take Haman out. They cover his face because he's now getting ready to be executed himself. They cover his face and they take him out. Look at 9. Now, Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, "Look, the gallows, 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai." Made for Mordecai. So look at what the Lord did and how he turned it around. The very gallows that he built to kill Mordecai with is what he's going to die with. Beloved, don't miss that. God says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." So you may not see what happens, but God is the ultimate of authority at the final say of how things will happen. Look at this. The gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good of the king's behalf, is standing at the house of Haman. Then the king said, "Hang him on it." Hang him on the very gallows that he built for somebody else. Oh, you don't miss your shout. That's your shout right there. That's your shout right there. He says, hang him on it. Look at verse 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. Beloved, injustice will be punished. I said that at the beginning. That's the title of the lesson. Injustice will be punished. God calls for us as a people to rise up and be a voice when we see injustices taking place, when we see people who are oppressed, when we see people who are ill-treated and marginalized. My prayer is that we use our voice, that we have bold and courageous spirits, just like Esther did. Call them in and speak our truth to power. Man, oh man, this was a powerful lesson here. I hope you were blessed. Until next week, God bless you, and I love you.